Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffery Combs.
Jeffery Combs, Facebook Live, Tuesday afternoon, the first Tuesday of November 2020. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is my privilege and pleasure to be here with you on this beautiful fall afternoon on election day. So welcome to Facebook Live. It is November 3rd. Welcome, everyone. Looking forward to a great Facebook Live this afternoon. Scott Lucas, Julia Johnson, Mandy Clayton are watching, as is Aaron Knight. Aaron, honored to be your coach today. Thank you very much. Welcome to Facebook Live. Who else do we have dialing in here or coming in? Scott Huminski, welcome. This is 2-4 Tuesday day. Colleen Olitsky in the Jacksonville, Florida area, welcome. Ryan Andra in Salt Lake City, Utah. Henry, welcome to Facebook Live. Ryan, good afternoon. Kevin Mayberry in Indiana, welcome, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Looking forward to a great Facebook Live here this afternoon. Once again, every Tuesday is 2-4 day. That is 2-4 Tuesday. Michael Cole and Valerie, welcome. Jameel, welcome. Jameel, I believe I met you in Florida. J.A. Johns, great connecting with you this afternoon. So the Facebook Live today is called Living in the Now. So welcome, everyone. Looking forward to a great Facebook Live. We have Nikos Fakero. Nikos is in Ukraine. He's originally from BC, British Columbia. This is Historic Day in the History of the World. Grateful for you, Jeffery Combs. That is Nikos, who lives in Kiev, Ukraine. I coach Nikos on 5 a.m. my time on Friday morning. So welcome, everyone. Janet Lloyd, good to have you here this afternoon from Chicagoland. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Berenice from Southern California, Orange County specifically. Let's move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. Every Tuesday is 2-4. That is 2-4 Tuesday, meaning at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and 12 a.m. That turns it into Wednesday, but for lack, I'll roll that back. 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I host 2 Facebook Lives. That means that every Tuesday is 2-4 Tuesday. So tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, I'll be back here on Facebook Live with a fresh topic. Now, today's topic is covering being present, being here, being in the now. What does that actually mean? Well, that term was really popularized by Eckhart Tolle in the late 1990s, moving into 2000s, when he wrote the groundbreaking book, The Power of Now. And that book really shook up the inspirational personal development, self-improvement world. He ended up doing a podcast with Oprah Winfrey that actually broke the bank of it. It actually broke the server because so many people are on it. So what does being present, being now mean being here, being now? What does that actually mean? It means that this is my interpretation. So you'll have your own interpretation, but for practical application, being in the now means that you're here and you're available. You're able to hear what people mean. You're able to communicate with people. You're not in a checked out, overwhelmed state. You're not in the pain of regret from the past, and you're not in the anxiety of the future. You're also not in an angry body, pissed off because you've been violated, traumatized, and all the other situations that all of us go through, a series of events that shape our feelings. When you're here and you're now, it enhances your ability to be and stay focused on solutions and results. It also allows you in a relationship to be relatable to someone. It allows you to be present to someone. But have you ever been with someone, they just keep talking and talking and talking? So you can be present, but you start to lose interest in people. And this is what many people do, is they're not even present, that they're just talking. They're in an ROW and ROS, run on words and run on sentence. So that's how many people communicate. They communicate from their past. They become addicted validators, justifiers, and explainers. And then a large percent of society starts and stops in a conversation. They start a sentence, go down here, end up in another sentence because of how checked out they are. And so commonly, when I coach clients, I say, finish your first sentence. Susan, finish your first sentence. Oh, I forgot where I was. Well, the reason, forgetting where she was is an effect. Forgetting where she was is not the cause. The cause would be the events that shape the feelings. So when I coach someone, I will break down these events that keep people in an overwhelmed, anxious, fear-based state based on a series of emotions. Now, the advantages of being present, being in the now, is you can hear what people mean, not say. In a business conversation, you can determine the difference between a qualified buyer and a non-qualified buyer. If you're seeking a companion, a date, a mate, you want to be able to hear what the person means. You want to be able to have a relaxed conversation so you can evaluate. What many people do in relationships is they go out on a date and they get attached to someone. They find that first shiny object, that first person, and then they want to fix them up. They overlook their character defects and character flaws because they're not really present. They're so attached to a future that hasn't happened that they overlooked a lot of these situations, these character defects, like the fact that the person's been through a couple of bankruptcies and has no money and expects you to pay for their date or expects you to pay for their rent. And if you're a codependent, addicted codependent, and you volunteer this, then that becomes an expectation. And now the dysfunction is on. And this is what many people do. They're not present to the situation. There's also this situation that we are taught to look for the good in people. Well, that's a good quality. However, in looking for the good in people, it's important that you also understand their character defects, because their character defects are what could lead to the sabotage of the relationship, whether it's business, personal. Have you ever had a boss that you can never please? Have you ever had that boss that was just chewing your ass, highly critical? Did you ever have a parent that you were never good enough? Did you ever have a parent that a B plus wasn't an A minus, an A minus wasn't an A plus, and then that parent was highly critical? Or did you ever have a brother or sister who traumatized you? They lived down the hall from you, and when they walked down the hall, you were in fight or flight. Or did you have a brother that would give you that Dutch rub or traumatize you and torment you? And it happened consistently. That's when the body goes into fight or flight. This is how we begin to check out. This is how we begin to create anxiety, fear, and doubt. This is how the term fight or flight comes about. Or if you've ever been sexually abused, traumatized, violated, any situations like that. If you grew up in a household where there's alcoholism, violence, and all the other situations, if you have parents that are checked out and they're providing for you, they're not rejecting you, but they are abandoning you, that's a whole other situation. And so the more you understand the cause that creates the effect of why you do what you do. There's a painter on my property, a very exceptional young man. I took him out a bottle of San Pellegrino. He's the employee of one of my former employees, and I was having a conversation with him. He was telling me he was a ward of the state, ended up in Los Angeles when he was 17 years old with $85 in his pocket. I could relate to that. I had been through similar situations, and he just informed me that he had 1 year of sobriety, and I commended him for it. And he was in the conversation. He was an artist, and I was asking him to do a little trim work and extra detail work for me in this project that he was doing. And he wanted to tell me the story. I was listening to him about what he had been through. I have empathy, but I couldn't stand there and listen to him for a half an hour. I listened to him for about 5 minutes, thanked him, and moved on. But I specifically asked him if he could do this one piece on a project for me, and if he would do it overtime on his time for a fee. So I asked him a qualifying question. He agreed to it, gave me a price, and we created the transaction. That's what life would be like in the world of selling. Value proposition, providing the service, and then the compensation is the exchange. And that's what you want to become skilled at in free enterprise. In the laws of compensation, you want to be able to have a value proposition, a product, service, benefit, and feature. And then it's your responsibility to attract the qualified buyer. Have the conversation, the communication that's effective with someone. What many people do is they talk too much. They have something they think someone needs. And so everybody needs this. Actually, not everyone does, because not everyone is going to see the value. And it's your responsibility to let go of people who aren't value conscious. This is why you encounter people who will say, how much does it cost? I did a 20-minute call earlier this morning, and one of the first questions the prospect said is, how much does it cost? My question was, if the value is great enough, does the cost matter? And he didn't know what to say. So I moved right along, and I could tell early in the conversation this was not a qualified buyer, which does not mean he's not a good person, but it meant he's not going to purchase from me. And it also meant he did not reject me. It meant that he wasn't in a position to hire me. So in being present and being now, I didn't overanalyze that and ask myself, did I make a mistake? Could I have done this? No, I just moved on to the next situation. And that's what you learn to do when you live in the now. In the now, you're able to easily and effortlessly let go, hence the term always letting go. And so when you're always letting go, there's not these two words, yeah, but. So when you live in your head, overwhelmed, when you're sensitive and defensive. Now, if you're watching this content and you're able to disseminate and actually receive this content, you want to ask yourself if you are sensitive and defensive. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that if you're sensitive and defensive, your ego will chronically and consistently get in the way of your progress. If you're sensitive and defensive, you will personalize situations and then create a story, and the word of 2020, narrative. You'll create a narrative out of the situation, and then you'll create a situation to violate yourself. Or you'll get really pissed off at the other person. So being sensitive and defensive, if you're sensitive and defensive, it's hard, it's challenging for a mentor, a coach, a therapist, a manager, a boss to give you input. Now, if someone's highly critical of you, that's a different situation. But even then, you want to be able to let go of your sensitive defensiveness and easily and effortlessly let go. Even if someone is chewing your ass unmercifully and you don't deserve it, it's your responsibility to breathe through it, not personalize it, exit the conversation, or whatever it is you have to do right there in the moment to neutralize your feelings. Now, in this book, Scaling the Map of Consciousness, one I would suggest he really covers the now. That's David Hawkins. He has a section on neutrality. So when you're in neutrality, that's what it means. And so neutrality scales up in energy. So in energy, neutrality is 250 cycles a second. So when you're in grief and apathy, it's like this. It's around 50 cycles a second. It's a very, very slow energy, slow vibration. And in your communication style, if you consistently stop and start in your communications, if you and you think and analyze and all these other situations, that you continue to do that, then you are not being present. Now, in your eye iris, you want to be able to, in being present, you can move your eyes. So like this, you can look over there and you can look over there and still be right here present. So when you're really skilled at being present, you can see behind you. You can see behind you with this eye, and you can move your eyes and still be right here in the conversation. So you can be like this, and be here. Or you can move one eye and we have one eye here. So you can have one eye over there and one eye right there. So it's like being in two places at one time. So that peripheral vision, that comes from being present. And then present moment consciousness is also your trust. That's your intuition. That's your gut feeling. And that comes from the neocortex of the brain with a nerve in your body called the vagus nerve. It runs down your back, comes around up on your hip, and attaches to the bottom of your abdomen, hence the term gut feeling. And so when you're in that gut feeling, when you know, K-N-O-W, then there is no doubt. And when there is no doubt, then you're here and you're now. And that is the place where it's easily and effortless to let go. And this is where in a business of sales, branding, marketing, coaching, intellectual property, real estate education, wellness coaching, Reiki master, and Valerie Hoganson is on today's Facebook Live. Valerie, let them know how to reach you. Valerie is a woman I highly recommend her services because she is a top-tier Reiki master. She's also a yoga instructor and a very skilled businesswoman in her late 20s. I've had the privilege of coaching Valerie for 3 years. Now, her healing modality is called Reiki. So she uses universal hand healing, and she does it in person, and she also does it remotely. I have several clients that I recommend their services. And Valerie's someone who's really in the now when she's healing, because in that space, you're right here, you're right now. So Cassiopeia Turcotte said, Cassie is also a top-tier high school basketball coach who had almost 100 victories and is an athletic director in a small East Coast school who is a very skilled coach and moving into a skilled businesswoman. So once again, now she was a very skilled basketball player, college and high school. That's another place where it's important to be in the now. So a crossover dribble, it means you're dribbling with your right hand and you're able to cross over or go behind your back. And you have to be able to do this without thinking. Any type of sport, any type of athletic endeavor, anytime when you're doing construction, any situation, it has to be unconscious, automatic, in the present, in the know. I saw that Colleen Olitsky was on today's Facebook Live. Her and her husband are top-tier dentists. Now, if you look up Colleen on Facebook, you can look her up. I believe her husband's business is called Smile by Design, and he specializes in porcelains and veneers, and they're a team practice. Colleen's also a very skilled business owner in direct sales. And so in that type of profession, that is like top tier. For when you specialize in porcelains and veneers, that is top tier information, or that is top tier service that you're offering to your clientele. I mean, that's anywhere from 30,000 on up into the hundreds of thousands. So if you're worried about making a mistake, you can't possibly be in the present. I'm getting bombarded with messages here in the background about what's going on in the world. So in being able to be ambidextrous, you can do two situations at one time. That is being in the now. And that is a key skill when you can do more than one situation at the same time while doing them effectively. That term is called ambidextrous. So it means you can use your left and your right hand. And those are reflex skills. And as you develop these skills, that means you can use your right foot, your left foot, your right hand, your left hand, your shoulder, your other parts of your body to accomplish situations. And being present also means you're very flexible. And if you're very rigid, it means that you're already worried about an outcome that hasn't happened. It means you're overwhelmed about an outcome that hasn't happened. It means you're consumed by the situation that could really challenge you or take you out of the flow. But when you're ITF, in the flow, that is the now. So if you haven't practiced being present, if you don't live in the present, you can go back and buy the old book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. It's a great, great book. It will give you great insight. He talks a lot about the egoic mind, but you can buy anything by David Hawkins, and I suggest that you start with Hawkins' book called Letting Go, and that book will give you great insight on what it means to let go so you can be present. And if you don't want to read a book, you can practice being present all day long by creating a longer breath cycle. A longer breath cycle is an abdominal breath. Now, once again, if you've been traumatized, violated, criticized, abused, neglected, and a whole multitude of other situations that have happened to you in your childhood, your teenage years, and whatever else time it's happened to you throughout the course of your life, then your body's going to be in fight or flight. And that makes it very challenging to let go. When you are no longer the mind-body connection to the events that shape your feelings, then you are in the present. That means that there's no past and there's no present that you're worried about. You're right here and you're right now. So in business, especially if you are in a business of selling, so like David Price is on today's Facebook Live. David is a top tier insurance professional. Now, David's a very unique man. He's an insurance broker. I've had the privilege of coaching him this year. And so on an average day, David might have 200-300 calls. He's in a company that creates leads. He creates his own leads. So on an average day, David could create 200 to 300 phone calls. Now that I used to do that myself. And so what many people don't understand, they think that selling is a numbers game. It's not. Selling is understanding the law of large numbers and then creating a law of averages in the numbers. So David is a closer. He also knows the one-call close method. And he also understands that to have a conversation with someone and then navigate them through a sequence, the sequence is conversation, presentation, commitment. I mean, that's the three-part sequence. So there's a conversation where you qualify the buyer. This is all in the present. But if you trip over your words, if you stumble over your words, if you and ah, and you start a sentence and you go down here, you will have challenges selling. Selling is the highest paid profession in the world. It does not require a PhD. It doesn't even require a public high school diploma, but it does require the ability to communicate and connect with someone. And then the word posture, that's how you project. That's how you come across. And if you have no posture and you have very low self-esteem, and then you start and stop in a sentence, you project your uncomfortability. What you're really letting the prospect know is that you're in doubt. You're not even certain if you believe in yourself, so how can you believe in the product, service, benefit, and feature? And this is a very common commonality that happens in all forms of selling, is that most of the selling audience is not in the present because they're checked out based on a past event, worried about a future event, and then they're overwhelmed when the two come together and collide. And then most of society does, they just keep studying. They keep getting more content. And they go to more seminars and more events and more training. And They go from this coach to that coach, and they never really, like, if you really learn my coaching philosophy on how to sell, my selling process is a 1-2 call close method. I mean, now that can change depending on the product, service, benefit, and feature you're selling, because there are some products that have a longer selling cycle. But most of the products that you'll encounter in the world are a 1-2-3 call close cycle. You might have a third call if you bring in a mentor or someone of influence or affluence. But when you bring that mentor in, that mentor better be a closer, because you just bring a mentor in and just does a lot of talking, you just wasted your time. Your objective when you are communicating with people in life is to be able to see if you can have a relaxed conversation. So if I'm sitting on the airplane and that person next to me doesn't look at me, isn't warm, I'm not going to interrupt them. Hey, how you doing? But if they give me a head nod, a smile, now that's an open opportunity to have a conversation. If I have a business proposition, I'm not sitting on the plane to prospect, but if the situation avails itself and it's a possible situation, I might open that conversation up. I once flew from Phoenix to Sacramento. A guy sitting next to me asked me what I did for a career. I told him I was a success, addiction, and let go specialist. He was fascinating. Then I turned it around on him, found out that he was a software engineer, found out a little bit about him. He told me situations. I asked him, if I was your coach, what would you want me to assist you with? He told me the problem. I showcased the value and asked him if he'd considered hiring me. When we got off the plane, we went over, we sat down, I wrote up an order, processed his credit cards. They had my credit card machine with me. Now, I wasn't sitting on the plane to prospect. I was sitting on the plane to fly home, but that situation availed itself. And so I never went out to meet people. I went out with a specific game plan and looked for people in present moment consciousness that were aware, and I had a system and routine to start a conversation. And this is all present. So when you are in a communication with someone, it's a relaxed focus. Now, this is applicable whether you're prospecting or whether you're dating, because it's the same situation. It's, does this person qualify for my time? Does this person have characteristics that match my characteristics? Is this person looking for what I'm looking for? Is this person someone that I feel I can relate to? And when you're not able to relate to someone and you give it an effort and it's not going anywhere, exit the conversation in a relaxed body, without feeling worried, guilty, afraid you might make a mistake, get in trouble, say the wrong thing. When you're able to separate your feelings from the events that shape them, you are no longer the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feeling. So when you're able to understand the difference between talking and qualifying, your results are going to change. And that comes from being and staying in the present, so that you can hear the buy signals, you can hear the non-interest signals. I asked someone earlier today, have you considered hiring me? And the gentleman started telling me a story, and I used his first name, Tom. That's a yes or no question. Now, people who don't understand that would go, that's too direct. Actually, it's not direct at all. It's clear. I'm very clear that I ask a yes and no question, and he's telling me a story. I used his first name to interrupt the conversation, to bring him back into the conversation, because if I let this go, this could go 5 minutes, and oftentimes the prospect forgets the question you ask. Now, when you're present, you will understand that. When you're present, you're in the now and you're in the know. You will hear people who give you commitment signs. They give you buy signals. They let you know that they're open to relationship, that there could be a win-win situation here. They could be your contractor, your vendor. They might be the right person to do your website. I asked a web vendor yesterday, I said, can you build a website for a secondary business for $4,000? He goes, well, let me think about it and get back to you. So what does that mean? It means I'm not following up with him. That was a yes-no question. I mean, it was that simple. He didn't even answer the question. I'm giving him an opportunity to earn my business. He didn't even ask me a question. He just said, is a sound. It's not a word. He said, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Now, I know he's not getting back to me because he didn't even have my number. I mean, that was being present. When you're present, you hear the twig break in the forest. You hear the buffalo coming over the hill. You hear the mockingbird sing in the background because you hear all the jungle sounds. You're there. You're attentive. It's called jungle awareness when you have those skills. That means that you hear, you're present, you're available, you're now, you have acute hearing skills. You're able to hear what's meant, not said. and you're not attached to the outcome. So you're not, oh, I think I have someone that's really good. Oh, this could be my soulmate. I see people, they go out on dating, they meet someone on the first date, and they're like, oh my God. And these people have a history of horrific relationships back to back. And they find someone that's another shiny object that they can fix up that becomes a pretty little pet. And they get attached because they're not present. They're already in the romance of the future rather than looking for the signs and the signals, the clues, the character defects, the good qualities. They're like all attached. And this is what happens in soulmates, prospecting, dating, mating, attraction marketing, all the other situations. You want to have skills in reading people. Reading people is not judging people. Reading people is an evaluation process. Judging people is when you get all attached to it. And you're either attached to being angry at them or hating them, or you're attached to the romance of them, and there's nothing really to connect with. My name is Jeffery Combs. I am the president and founder of Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. If you have not received a free 20-minute coaching call from me, and you have considered hiring me at some point, or you'd like to find out more about my coaching services for 2020 or 2021, go right up there in Facebook Messenger and send me your number, and I will respond to you within 24 hours. I will be back here on Facebook Live at 9 p.m. Tuesday night. That is 9 p.m. tonight, Pacific Standard Time. That is 12 a.m. Wednesday morning. So all Tuesdays are 2-4 Tuesday. You have a great afternoon.